Breaking today, an increasingly desperate Meghan Markle flies into the UK. If you believe them.
For days, the narrative looked brutally simple, almost too perfect. Harry stood alone outside a courthouse carrying the weight of a legal collapse that should have shattered him. A case against the Daily Mail. Deeply personal, completely dismissed, not delayed, not complicated, gone. And yet something didn't fit, because while headlines screamed failure, Harry kept smiling, not politely deliberately. A thumbs up here, a joke there, composure that didn't match the damage. And Meghan, completely invisible. No arrival photos, no appearances, no support at Invictus, nothing the story wrote itself, disaster, distance, collapse, except that version was hiding something. Because while the world watched Harry absorb blow after blow, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet were already moving quietly, precisely toward Britain. Not publicly, not visibly, but strategically. And suddenly, every single moment Harry spent smiling in front of cameras started to look less like resilience and more like a countdown. Think about it. A man loses one of the most defining legal battles of his life. Commentators call it one of his worst weeks ever. Add a palace accommodation dispute messy, unresolved, humiliating in optics. Then layer on the security controversy, the same argument Harry had fought for years, now flurrying again in headlines. And still no crack, no visible frustration, no anger, just that same steady, controlled presence. That wasn't normal, that wasn't human instinct, that was preparation. Because there are only two ways to read that kind of behavior. Either Harry was performing strength or Harry knew something no one else did. And the second version changes everything. Because while speculation exploded, was Meghan staying in California? Had she abandoned the trip? Was the reunion dead? The truth was moving through private VIP channels, bypassing every camera, every reporter, every predictable route. Meghan, Archie, Lilibet already inside the United Kingdom. No announcement, no leak, no trace. A movement so clean it erased itself. And then Highgrove. Behind closed doors, no press, no build-up, no interference. Just a private meeting with King Charles and Queen Camilla that landed like a shockwave only after it was already over. That timing? Not accidental. That was protection. By the time the world knew, nothing could stop it. No narrative could derail it. No pressure could rewrite it. And suddenly, Harry's entire week flipped. He wasn't smiling because he was strong. He was smiling because he was waiting.
Sunday, we will look at the background behind the verdict, what it means for Prince Harry, and the ongoing
The plan was already in motion. The family was already coming. The meeting was already secured. And Harry's job? Keep everything calm on the surface while everything critical happened underneath. Every public appearance, every composed reaction, every perfectly timed gesture, it wasn't about survival. It was about control. And it worked, because the worse the week looked publicly, the more powerful the reversal became. A collapsing trip suddenly transformed into a global headline. A failed visit became a secret success. Harry and Meghan didn't just survive the week, they reshaped it. But here's where the story stops being simple and starts becoming uncomfortable. Because if this was just a family reunion, just a grandfather seeing his grandchildren, why did it require this level of secrecy? Why the invisible arrivals? Why the silence until the moment passed? Why was Harry presented as completely alone while his family moved in total shadow? Normal family visits don't operate like covert missions, which means this wasn't normal. And Meghan's movements prove it. Because look closely at what Meghan didn't do. She didn't stand beside Harry during his worst public moments. She didn't appear at the courthouse. She didn't show up at Invictus. She didn't give the press a single image they could use. Not one. Total absence during every risky moment. And then perfect timing, she appears only for Highgrove. Only for the most valuable moment of the entire trip. That's not coincidence. That's precision. It tells you exactly how this operation was designed. Risk avoided, value targeted, exposure minimized, impact maximized. Because proximity to the crown is everything. The Sussex brand doesn't survive on distance. It survives on connection. The closer Harry and Meghan appear to King Charles, the stronger their position becomes. And one private meeting handled correctly can do more than a year of public appearances. But then something strange happened. No photograph. No official image of King Charles with Archie and Lilibet. No visual proof of the moment everyone expected. And that absence? That's louder than any confirmation. Because an image like that doesn't just travel, it resets narratives. It softens perception. It signals reconciliation instantly. So why hold it back? Because sometimes the value of a moment isn't in capturing it, it's in when you release it.
And we're once again He looked like a broken man giving an awkward interview to Alison Hammond of Woke IT.
Because while the meeting itself was wrapped in conditioned strict ones, controlled ones, the world outside those walls wasn't. No cameras inside Highgrove, no recordings, no commercial use, no reconstruction later. That was the line, that was the agreement, and on paper, it looked airtight. King Charles protected, Queen Camilla protected, the moment contained. But here's the problem with containment. It only works where control exists. The second Harry and Meghan stepped outside Highgrove, that control disappeared. And that's where the camera enters. Because suddenly, quietly, almost too quietly, reports confirmed something that shouldn't have mattered, but did. A camera crew was present during the trip. Officially, Invictus, public charity, harmless, routine, a perfectly reasonable explanation. Except it didn't answer the real question. Because when a camera follows an entire operation, it doesn't just capture what it's told to capture. It sees everything. It observes everything. It exists around every moment, planned or unplanned. And that's where the line begins to blur. Because this wasn't just a charity trip. This was a week where Harry and Meghan moved between public collapse and private access, between failure and proximity, between narrative and reality. And cameras don't ignore that. Then came the detail that shifted everything again. Another location, not Highgrove, not Invictus, something else, something heavier. Althorp, Princess Diana's resting place. The emotional center of the entire Harry and Meghan story. The place where legacy isn't just remembered, it's felt. And suddenly, reports started circling, quietly, carefully, suggesting that Althorp was part of this visit. Not confirmed, not denied, just present. And then one small detail that changed the entire equation. Althorp was closed, unusually closed, at a time it normally wouldn't be. During the exact window Harry and Meghan were in Britain. Now stop and connect the dots. A camera crew already traveling with them. A location of immense emotional and commercial value suddenly inaccessible to the public. A timing alignment that feels too precise to dismiss, because if Highgrove was the headline, Althorp could be the destination. And that changes the meaning of everything. Because bringing Archie and Lilibet to Britain suddenly isn't just about King Charles. It isn't just about Queen Camilla. It isn't just about reconciliation. It becomes about legacy, about narrative, about something that could live far beyond this week. Because think about the power of that image. Archie and Lilibet at Althorp. Princess Diana's grandchildren standing at the place where she rests. Not described, not imagined. Seeing, that's not just a moment. That's content. That's global attention. That's emotional currency. That's the kind of footage that doesn't just trend, it reshapes perception overnight. And suddenly, the secrecy around the entire trip doesn't feel defensive. It feels strategic. Because if that footage exists even partially, then the real story of this week hasn't been told yet. Which brings everything back to the one thing King Charles tried to control: privacy.
So this is a real homecoming for so many of them, with the Birmingham Hospital, Queen Elizabeth Hospital, all of it.
No cameras, no leaks, no reconstruction, no content. That was the condition. That was the line drawn to protect Highgrove. But Althorp, outside every agreement, outside every boundary, outside every promise made inside royal property. And that's the gap. Because Harry could promise silence about one room while something else is being captured somewhere no agreement can reach. And now we're left with the question that refuses to settle. Was this week about reconciliation, or was it about positioning? Because the evidence sits uncomfortably in both directions. Harry had his worst week and somehow ended with access. Meghan avoided every risk and appeared exactly where value peaked. A camera crew existed where privacy was promised. And Althorp still sits there, untouched publicly, but impossible to ignore. And now comes the real test. Not what happened, but what comes next. Because if silence holds real silence, then maybe something genuine shifted. Maybe Harry meant the promise. Maybe King Charles wasn't played. But if even one detail leaks, one image surfaces, one project appears with a scene that feels too close to this week, then everything changes. Because that would mean the meeting wasn't the conclusion. It was the setup. And the story we thought we watched was only the beginning.